We're going to start with probability today, and probability is the likelihood for a certain outcome of a random phenomenon occurring. So let me just kind of correct that. So we're going to start by looking at some definitions. First of all, each time we observe a random phenomena, it's called a trial or experiment. Each trial generates a single outcome. And a trial could be rolling two dice, so we could have, two dice rolls as our single outcome. The collection of all possible outcomes is called the sample space. We use the letter S to denote it. And an event is any set or collection of outcomes. Usually we use letters A, B, and so on. So for example, if we toss a coin, we may say that age is equal to tossing a head, and then we use the probability notation below that. And for example, the probability of age when we're using a fair coin should be 1/2 because we have the same chance of tossing either a heads or a tail. So let's dive into an example over here, and hopefully some of these definitions will make sense. So suppose you're rolling two dice. We have our sample space, so again, that's all the possible outcomes displayed below. And so we could either have a 1 and a 1, or a 1 and a 2, or a 1 and a 3, and so on. If A is the event of rolling two dice whose values sum to 7, what are the outcomes contained in A? And usually we use set notation over here. So we could call A is equal outcomes 1 and 6. We could roll a 2 and a 5. We could roll a 3 and a 4 and a 3. And, make sure you understand that 3 and 4 and 4 and 3 is not the same thing, because 3 and 4 means we're rolling a 3 on the first die and a 4 on the second die, where 4-3 means rolling a 4 on the first die and a 3 on the second die. And we'll continue on with 5-2, and the last one is 6-1. So these would be all 6 outcomes we could get, and we could also highlight them over here with in our sample space. So we have 1-6, 5-2, 3-4, 4-3, 5-2, so we can kind of see that diagonal over here. All right, let's look at event B, which states is the event of rolling doubles, meaning the same number on both dice. What are the outcomes contained over here? All right, for doubles, we have 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, 4-4, 5-5, and 6-6. And each of these outcomes is only there once, so no need to, write it twice. So again, if I want to highlight this on my graph up here, I'm going to look at 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, all my diagonals going the other way. And then our third outcome, or third event over here, is the event of rolling two dice whose values sum to 10. All right, so our last event over here, we have 6-4, 5-5, and 4-6. And I can highlight again on our graph above. So we have 6-4, 5-5, I'm gonna double highlight this, and then 4-6. So as you can see, writing down the sample space, as in our example right here, can be a really useful tool in understanding the outcomes we can have in an event, and also for finding the probabilities, which we're going to look at in the next section. So the probability, and we have three different probabilities over here. The first type of probability is called the classical approach of probability. For that, we're going to write the number of favorable outcomes to A divided by the number of outcomes in the sample space. This is only useful when the outcomes of an experiment are equally likely. So in the previous example, what was the probability for rolling the dice? Again, using the classical approach over here, which we call the theoretical approach as well. So let's go back up. We're going to find the probability. So one thing you notice by looking at the sample space, we have 36 outcomes because we actually have 6 outcomes for our first die, we have 6 outcomes for our second die, and all those different combinations are displayed in our sample space, giving us 36 total outcomes. So since we're looking at the number of events that are favorable divided by the total outcomes, we simply count how many events we have over here in our set. So we had 6, and we're going to divide it by the total outcomes. So this is a 1 in 6 chance over here. Looking at our second event, again, we had 6 outcomes over here divided by the 36 total outcomes. So for the probability of B is also 6 out of 36, or 1 in 6 chance. Our third probability, we only have 3 events. So we're going to do 3 divided by 36, which is a 1 in 12 chance over here. So make sure for the notation again, we write the probability of event A is equal to, and then we can either give that value as a fraction, that is simplified, or we can give it as a decimal number. So this is our first approach to probability, looking at how many outcomes are favorable, divide by the total number of outcomes, and keep in mind that for this to work, we need to have each outcome equally likely. This is something we're going to look at in class a little closer, and sometimes we can make it so they're all equally likely. So sometimes we have to make adjustments for that, and we'll look at that in class. So the second approach is called the empirical probability. It's also called the frequentist approach. This is where we look at the number of times A occurred, and we're going to divide it by the number of the trials. With that, we have the law of large numbers, which states that when we do a procedure or a trial repeatedly, our empirical probability will eventually approach the theoretical probability. In this little graph, you can see that when we're tossing a coin and we're looking for the number of heads, when we first tossed it over here, the first coin toss was a head. So this is why we had a proportion of 1. The second coin toss was a tail. So when we average the probability of 1 plus 0, we end up with, or the number of heads out of 2 tosses was 1 out of 2. And so on. So we can see how this goes up and down, as we are getting heads and tails. And eventually, over the long run, we end up with a probability around 0.5, because this is what we're expecting when we're tossing a coin, right? If we toss a coin many, many times, we would expect half those tosses to be heads and the other half to be tails. So the long-term probability is equal to 0.5. Or again, when we're repeating our trials, we will eventually get closer and closer to that theoretical probability. So this is the second approach, and we'll also look at examples for that in class. Now, our very last approach is the subjective approach to probability. And, as the name states, it's a lot more subjective. It's not really as useful, but sometimes we just don't have the data available in order to use our frequency distribution or frequency approach, and we also don't have the theoretical probability available. So in that case, we can use a subjective approach. So it's simply subjective to what we believe. So for example, what's the probability that the Chargers will make the playoffs? And, depending on who the players are and who's injured and who they're playing against, those probabilities will vary from person to person, really. And maybe with additional knowledge, it will change. So definitely something that is not as useful, but we just kind of define it with the other probabilities. We will really focus much more on the frequency approach as well as the theoretical probability.